I am so excited to be joined today by Tory Bradley. So Tory is Global Ecom Retail Search Director at Mars Wrigley. She leads the global retail SEO and GEO strategy to optimize search performance across all major platforms. Previously at Wayfair and General Mills, she built expertise in content strategy, category management, and account leadership. Tory, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We did a little Mars internal podcast, and now it's good to return the favor.
Absolutely. No, yeah, thank you for doing that. And just, yeah, as a whole, we're trying to just upskill Mars on GEO and how it's evolving.
So Mars is just an incredible company, and one that even before we started working with you guys, I listened to the Acquired episode on, and it's just fascinating. And they have, as a company, really taken advantage of previous technology shifts. So not sure how much you're into the history of Mars as much as I am, but back in 1923, Mars became basically the first chocolate maker, moving from handmade making chocolate in the kitchen to using electricity to essentially build factories and replace this labor-intensive hand-dipping batch production methods. The revenue impact of that transition was extraordinary. They basically 10x their sales in a year from 73,000 to 793,000, which I imagine is big numbers back in 1923-24. But it wasn't the only shift that they used this new technology of electricity for. They also invented Mars Electronics International, which is vending machines. So today, 6 million electrified vending machines across the world. And when I asked ChatGPT to estimate the revenue that you guys have driven through your vending machines, ChatGPT estimates it about 12 billion. They innovated both in the production, but also in the distribution in the previous technology wave. So do you have the sense that the company feels today that we're at a similar technology inflection point?
Absolutely. Like, I think if you think of the impulse or what you're saying of, we invented with Mars Wrigley snacking of with chocolate and with gum of that kind of above the belt at the checkout. And now it's evolving to the e-checkout space. And now it's even further, to your point, on the Gen AI and retailer shopping assistance of, if we don't have that visibility, we won't be purchased because it's not usually a planned purchase. So it's how can we continue to get those eyeballs and adopt to the technology? So it's definitely top of mind for Mars to continue to have that evolution.
Do you, back then it would have been a kind of a father and a son building this factory together. Now, obviously, it's a massive company, multi-billion-dollar company, 114 years old. Are there challenges that you find steering such a large ship towards a new technology wave that probably they were a bit lighter on their feet in the past? Or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think Gen AI, as an example, has only come to light for the organization really in the last year, where we have put resources behind it. And so I think it is just that education on all levels of the organization. So I think we've done a good job of, it's not that, I think it's not like AI is replacing your jobs, but it's the ones who understand it and are applying it and are using it to drive that efficiency are the ones who are going to win. And so that's been more of our mindset of how we've adopted it for Mars at this point.
Would you have any advice to listeners, maybe at similar companies who are also trying to drive this adoption, and any thoughts on how they can steer their companies in a direction pointing towards the future?
Yeah, I think it is that top down, but also bottom up approach. So if your leaderships understand it and understand the value that it can drive, then we're able to put those resources for those bigger initiatives that we're trying to drive. But then it's that test and learn from a bottom up standpoint of bringing those opportunities where you can see that automation. And I think it's almost like that analysis paralysis of, there's a company every day that can say, we can save you time, we can save you money. And so it's for those maybe more bottom up conversations of, who's the right partner to move forward with. And so we've done a lot of kind of those RFP, RFI conversations of who can not just hypothesize, but who can take it to that action and results place as well. Because obviously that's what leadership's going to care about.
And how do you assess that? Yeah, I imagine you guys, my inbox is flooded with AI generated emails trying to sell me all sorts of stuff. And I imagine you're probably exactly the same. Like, how do you weed through so much noise to actually find the right partners?
It's not easy. I think, yeah, it's someone new every day. And I think it's what I have now is just a one pager that I can direct, because it's not just me getting the emails, but it's me getting forwarded emails from others of, oh, have you evaluated this person? Or, oh, what do you think of this company? And then we can identify, as long as you have that clear goal in mind and those clear kind of KPIs, because I think GEO is a perfect example of a lot of companies have started with SEO and now they see GEO as this big shiny object. So that's where they're laddering on those capabilities to their original offering, where then you can see it is still in that pretty hypothesis early stage. So that's where really understanding those, again, who can drive those results and connect back to our KPIs.
So how do you feel that optimizing for GEO is different from SEO?
Yeah, so I've been talking SEO. So I've been in the search space for the US, and then now from a global lens for the last 3-4 years. And so I've definitely said the kind of clear elements of for search for retailers, understand the algorithm, understand what we can implement or control from a PDP landscape, understand what your what your keywords are, how do we incorporate those components and align it to our paid search strategy. So fundamentally, I had the core, I've spread that through the organization of what to do. And so I'd say that's our 101. Now with GEO, it moves to that sentiment or that, I guess, question prompt lens. So it's no longer a keyword, but it's how are you communicating back and forth with these different agents. And what's so interesting is that it gives us so much more information about the consumer as well. So obviously for what's within our control, it's the same elements of how do we incorporate that within our PDPs, but it's the how quickly it's evolving. So I would say SEO has been relatively stagnant for a year, where it's okay, now Amazon 2 weeks ago is pulling from offsite sources as well. Retailers are now partnering with ChatGPT. I think it's that constant shifting as well, where again, obviously finding a partner that's able to shift as quickly with a manufacturer like Mars is obviously a big point to the earlier question. But I would say those are the big differences, is the level of change and the additional information that we're getting from the consumer, but also the additional sources that it's pulling from.
Yeah, as you say, it's shifting so rapidly. And I think we started seeing citations from Walmart for the first time like a day or two ago. So they were literally never doing citations, and now they were. And we've been doing Sparky together for a while, and I don't know if how much you've looked into it, but they used to give you like a 1 or 2 line answer, which was pretty generic. And now we're starting to see Sparky do a similar experience to Rufus or ChatGPT, where it will link products, where it will give you a bit of a summary, and then it will say, here are the top 3 or 4 products, and then it will give you a citation. So the ground that we're playing in is just moving so quickly. How do you personally keep up to date with all of the new things that are happening across all these retailers, all these LLMs everywhere?
Yes, I do have to obviously toot Azoma's horn of having a partner that is adapting as quickly as the space is adapting. So I know I can obviously ping you and I send you articles and I'm like, what do you think about this? What's happening here? But I think it is just, obviously there are going to be those articles, and if I'm not reading them, someone else in the organization is sending them to me. So I definitely have to stay on top of what's the latest and the greatest. And I think that's just where we can have that first to market point of view and action. Because again, it comes back to what can we do? Because I think everyone's cool, great, it's evolving, but it's then the then what of what else can we do to ensure that we are visible in this space.
Do you feel like your role's changing a bit? Because I don't want to assume, but I would guess, I worked in search as well. I would guess 4 years ago, nobody's sending you an article about SEO Google changes. And probably today you may be getting like 5 emails from all sorts of senior people about Walmart. Do you feel like that's your role's changing?
Absolutely. I would say it was definitely more so focused on what I talked about of just the fundamentals with content, the alignment with shopper marketing. But now, yeah, GEO has completely changed the game of how we're thinking about search and how we're aligning the organization. Because I think that's what I'm trying to upskill on, is because the citations are so different than just a PDP. That means we need to have alignment with a PR team, brand marketing, legal, social, to ensure that we're visible and driving a consistent brand message. So I think it is not only for my role, but then thinking even more broadly of how do we create those kind of AI task force and resource buckets so that we are able to test and learn quickly of what is working in the space.
I think this is such a big theme with many of our customers, is like, how do you restructure the organization? And I'd be curious, I don't know how much you can share, but we've had discussions before about bringing, you've probably never seen peep shows, you're American, you don't know what I'm talking about when I say peep show.
I have seen, my husband's British, but
yes, of course.
I've
so
seen
maybe watch some. Good, yeah.
So
anyway, there's this one where, what's his name? Mark's boss, I forget his name now, makes him go and pitch this kind of like combining sales and marketing to the board, and it goes horribly. And that, I feel like that when I'm talking to some customers, because I'm like, you guys have to combine PR and SEO, like you have to do it. And I get that kind of just tweaks my memory of how badly it went in Peep Show. But like, how are you thinking about it? Because clearly, as you say, social in terms of Reddit and YouTube being pulled into these LLMs a lot. Definitely PR is really important. And like we see in the citations, each of these LLMs normally will have a deal with specific publications. And you'll see that in the LLM. So like Amazon will reference publications that they did a deal with, and that was in the news a couple months ago. And obviously OpenAI have got a lot of these. And in order to do this, it's not, PDP is an important piece, but it's like one of the kind of 3 or 4 big elements of it. And so how have you been thinking about it?
Yeah, it's for a large organization, like you said, with Mars, it's not easy, but it is, again, that kind of top down, bottom up of if the leader in marketing, who obviously controls the social, the PR, that elements, if they understand what's trying to be achieved and how this has evolved, I think that's step 1. And then it is those kind of test and learns of, can we get that dynamic AI task force to even just prove out one element? Because I think there is a lot of energy and excitement. Like, we have an internal studio team who creates a lot of our content across marketing and PDPs and things like that. And they're seeing that opportunity of Reddit. What do we do? So there is that excitement. Yeah. It's just, again, I don't know specifically for Reddit. I don't know if anyone's really cracked that nut, but yeah, I think it is just, how do you partner the energy maybe from bottom up and then the education from top down?
Yeah. My view, for what it's worth, is that I think the social, anything which can be influenced by AI, so Reddit, for example, like AI generated Reddit comments, I think are going to become more and more. And I think the LLMs are going to have to move, let's say over the long term, like 2-3 year horizon, towards the publications and sources of truth, because there'll be a ton of AI generated junk in Reddit. There'll be loads of companies, as you said, doing this for people. Every Reddit post will have 10 AI comments, and it's probably going to be really hard for Reddit to manage this. You're going to have AI generated YouTube videos like just flooded everywhere. So like you put in best dog food, and you're going to have all these different AI generated videos talking about all these different brands. So really the last place where the LLMs can get some truth will be these publications, these journals, because they'll have a human journalist at least edit. There'll be a verified human journalist who edits it, and the kind of reputation of the journal or publication itself will matter a lot more than the signals we see today, where Reddit obviously does influence ChatGPT quite a lot, and Gemini. decreasingly, but I think we're going to see that trend over 1 or 2 years where basically you can't just trust social anymore because it's just AI, people trying to influence the AI engines with AI content.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that's what I've been articulating. And that's, again, the point of how quickly the space is changing, is that the sources today might not be the sources tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And creating content, obviously always for the consumer first, but
Yeah.
it's also creating it for these agents who are going to be scraping it to drive that visibility on Gen or ChatGPT or elsewhere. So it's a mindset shift as well.
Yeah. So I want to quote from you, Andy Jassy, last week on a Q3 earnings call. I'm not sure if you saw this. He said, Rufus, our AI-powered shopping agent, has had 250 million active customers this year. Customers using Rufus are 60% more likely to complete a purchase, and Rufus is on track to deliver 10 billion in incremental annualized sales. Thoughts like crazy. We knew all along, and we've been sharing lots of data on this, but to hear it from the CEO of Amazon in his opening statement on the Q3 earnings call was just mind-blowing.
100%, which it's great because then that validates why we're here. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest or the most frequent questions that we get internally. And you've heard it from our teams as well, as what's that adoption versus our traditional search bar? How much energy should we be spending here because it is so new? And that's why I'm so passionate of having Mars hopefully be a first mover in this space, is because exactly to the quote that you just gave, is that even if, where it's not there where it is, but it still will grow and it will still get better, and we'll still see that increased adoption, especially as ChatGPT becomes the norm for a lot of consumers and maybe younger generations. Like that's just going to be transferred to these retailers. I think that's why I'm so passionate about making sure we're visible now, because it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. What's your prediction for when we see that day where Amazon deprecates the search bar and it's just all Rufus, and Google, everything is an AI overview, and there's no links anymore? Like, when do you think that will happen, or do you think that will happen?
I know it's expensive for them, so we'll see. I think it is maybe once they reach that level of penetration, and obviously it still says beta on Amazon Rufus. So once they actually maybe hone in on those offsite sources, once they get that penetration piece for the utilization, and especially if that level of conversion continues, it's only upside. But to your point, if it's incremental right now, so having both is not serving them.
Yeah, it's a confusing customer experience. And I know that Rufus, you get in the search bar now suggested Rufus questions and answers. So I think it's a strange customer experience that you have Rufus basically in 4 different places across the Amazon ecosystem. Doesn't make sense as a customer when you're trying to view information.
Exactly. And I think it is just trying to, again, drive that adoption no matter where they are on their path. And I think that's where, again, from the internal pieces of, oh, we talked to this person, they've never used it, or so I think it is still that discovery.
I hear this all the time, and I say, look, people don't know it's called Rufus, so they are using it. They just don't know. You have to be a strange industry nerd like me to know that it's called Rufus, because otherwise you're just, oh yeah, I put in a keyword in Amazon and I saw this sentence and it matched my query and I pressed it and then I talked to it, and you're not going to know. Like for most people, it's search, right? It's a different button to search. So I often have that conversation with people where they go, I've never used Rufus. I go, oh, have you seen this along the navigate bar on your phone? Like there's 4 buttons and the 5th one. Have you ever used that? I go, yeah. Have you used that? I was like, okay. Well, you just don't know that you've used Rufus. You've been using it.
100%.
Like in my mind, we're in this race, or this race forming, which is like the closed system of Amazon and their AI agent Rufus, which leans on their distribution, their network effects of having all you amazing brands selling on the Prime Day badge trust. And then this kind of challenger group of ChatGPT with Shopify and Walmart kind of building some open on the web agent. Like who do you think wins in this? Where do you think people are going to default to in the future?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to who's doing the better job of making the lives of the consumers easier. So I think the point of having it all on ChatGPT for Walmart is that you don't have to navigate back and forth. You can do a full 3 clicks and you're set, you're done. And that's been a best practice of 3 clicks to convert and you're there. So I would say if they're an Amazon user, if they're a ChatGPT user, I would see them staying within the platforms that they're using. Obviously, the ChatGPT Walmart isn't live yet, but I think it is just who's gonna make the lives of the consumers easier. And then what we're trying to do internally is just understand what is that new path to purchase then is what if it's TikTok, they're most likely not converting on TikTok. They're going to Amazon and then maybe are they using Rufus and things like that. Or if it is ChatGPT, that could technically be a new channel on its own. And then how do we dedicate resources to just OpenAI and things like that? It's definitely a new mindset for that.
And that brings up an interesting question. I had this. I joined one of our team sales calls today and discussing with, like a big brand on kind of this ChatGPT stuff, and they were super keen. And what we talked about actually, we're talking about like how we measure attribution stuff, and they're like, "Oh, we're not that worried because we know people are asking ChatGPT, then they're turning up in store and buying." So, like, how do you measure that? Like, have you thought about like the attribution at all? Because it gets really messy when people on TikTok and then they're going to Amazon or they're on ChatGPT and then they're going into supermarket.
Yeah, I would say what's expanded is that discovery. So if you'd say 80% of purchases still happen in store, but 80% of discovery happens online. But now that's diversified of it's not just a Google search where you're clicking on links. It's the ChatGPT, it's TikTok. So that's grown exponentially. So I think that's what makes it much more complicated of the in-store. Again, they're researching it, they're finding it, that the in-store piece hasn't as much been complicated other than how do we tie those experiences from online to offline from an omni lens. And that's a huge initiative for us. But it's just understanding more about the discovery and where consumers are going so that we can focus our energies and our strategies and our campaigns to reach them where they're at.
Makes sense. And do you feel being at a giant like Mars gives you an advantage or a disadvantage in approaching a new space like this?
I feel like I have to advantage. We have lots of resources. We have the ability to partner with great agencies like yourself. So I think it is obviously, like I said, upskilling a large proportion. But if anything, that'll serve us in the long run of hopefully being able to move faster in the upcoming years as this technology develops. But coming from Wayfair, yes, obviously it's more scrappy and less people to align with, but probably not as much of those longer term sustainable strategies, more kind of one-offs.
My last question really is what attracted you into the search space personally in the first place? Like before you knew all this sexy, cool AI stuff was going to come and hopefully make your life a lot more, your work life a lot more exciting and fun. Like what brought you into it?
Yeah, so I think e-commerce in general, before all this happened, it still was the fastest moving place to be within the organization. So I think that's definitely attractive. I think then from there, search touches all components online, like it's content, it's availability, it's shopper marketing. So you do get to collaborate with so many different partners to ensure that you are having that visibility even in the traditional space to win. And then the GEO is just the cherry on top of I'm always just curious and wanting to learn and wanting to lead. And I think, again, with the size of Mars, with that kind of initiative to be a leader in the GEO space, specifically for retailers, I think is really exciting. And just being able to hopefully provide content guidance so that we are able to have that clear playbook by the end of the year of exactly what we can do to drive that visibility. And then again, that partnership of it's not just going to be Sparky and Rufus. I know Albertsons launched one. I've heard it on multiple different retailers roadmaps for 26. And so it seems like everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. So again, how do we adapt to those different retailers? Because I'm sure it's going to be the buy of the ChatGPT, which I think I've seen DoorDash
these
and
guys,
Target.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
And
going to
then
overtake Gemini or ChatGPT, and then they're going to do some training, and then they're going to have the like. So it's a different kind of beast. So Rufus and Sparky, they're literally building their own thing, and you can see it in like how often it's changing. But yeah, it's definitely exciting to see what the lesser ones do. Not lesser, smaller ones, I should say, do.
Exactly. So we'll be watching the space for sure, adapting, not just, focusing on the big, but how do we win across the board? Because that's been always our philosophy of winning from an SEO standpoint.
Cool. Tory, great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being such a force of nature during doing the work. It's incredible to see like how many teams you are able to move in the right direction, and you're like conducting a very large orchestra in a hopefully an amazing way to keep Mars a leader for the next 114 years, hopefully, in this new AI and this new technology wave. Yeah, thank you for coming on and your partnership.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And thank you to Azoma. You've been, great partners and definitely helping us be the leader in this space, not only from a retailer lens, which is obviously where our focus is, but then also from an offsite, which I know is pretty rare to be able to do both. So I'm excited to, continue the momentum. Thank you.